Zara Thorne pressed her fingers against the bioscanner, watching the green light flicker as it read her carefully modified genetic signature. The massive crystalline doors of the Galactic Academy of Heroes slid open with a soft hum, revealing corridors that stretched impossibly far into the distance. Students from dozens of species moved through the halls like colorful rivers of scales, fur, and exotic skin textures. She pulled her hood slightly forward, ensuring the neural dampener remained hidden beneath her artificial cranial ridges. The prosthetic had taken months to perfect, complete with the distinctive bone structure of a Calarian. To any scanner or casual observer, she appeared to be just another promising young recruit from the Outer Rim territories. The Academy floated in the void between three star systems, a testament to the greatest engineering minds in the galaxy. Its bioluminescent walls pulsed gently, providing both light and a calming atmosphere for the students who would one day become the galaxy's protectors. Zara had dreamed of this place since she was 12 years old, back when Earth was still classified as a restricted world. New student orientation begins in the central amphitheater, announced a floating translation orb as it bobbed near her shoulder. The device's melodic voice switched between 17 different languages before settling on Galactic Standard. Please proceed to Level 7, Section Delta. Zara nodded and began walking, her modified boots clicking softly against the biometallic floor. Around her, she noticed the easy confidence of students who had grown up knowing they belonged here. A group of Cthrak cadets practiced levitation exercises while walking, their crystalline bodies refracting the corridor lights into rainbow patterns. Several Corvani students moved in perfect synchronization, their hive-mind connection allowing them to navigate the crowds without collision. She felt distinctly out of place, despite months of preparation. Every movement had to be calculated, every reaction measured. Calarians were known for their calm demeanor and analytical minds, not for the barely contained energy that seemed to vibrate through her human cells. The amphitheater was breathtaking. Rows of bioformed seats curved around a central platform, where a massive Vorthak administrator waited. Director Keth Na was legendary, a war hero who had helped establish the Academy 3 centuries ago. Her 6 arms moved in graceful patterns as she spoke, each gesture emphasizing points in her welcome speech. You represent the finest minds and strongest spirits from across our galaxy. Kethna's voice resonated through the chamber without amplification, a natural ability of her species. Here you will learn not just to fight but to protect, not just to lead but to serve. The challenges you face will push you beyond what you believe possible. Zara found an empty seat near the back, next to a nervous-looking Quellian, whose tentacles kept changing color in anxiety patterns. The creature introduced himself as Flux 7, a recent graduate from the technical academies. His English was surprisingly good, though he occasionally lapsed into binary code when excited. First time off-world for me, Flux 7 whispered, his tentacles flickering between blue and green. You seem calm. Calarians always seem calm. Is it true your species can slow their heart rate at will? Zara's heart actually sped up at the question, but she forced herself to nod slowly. Among other things, she replied, mimicking the careful speech patterns she had studied. We find emotional control leads to clearer thinking. Fascinating, Flux 7 clicked. I wish I had that ability. My anxiety patterns are probably broadcasting to half the amphitheater. The orientation continued with details about dormitory assignments, class schedules, and academy rules. Zara memorized everything while appearing to listen casually. Her room assignment was in the Delta Wing, shared with 3 other students. Her cover identity showed her as coming from Calaria Prime, with high marks in strategic thinking and energy manipulation. The energy manipulation part was true, though not in any way the Academy records indicated. Humans had capabilities that most galactic species couldn't comprehend, abilities that had kept Earth quarantined for over 200 years. Zara could manipulate electromagnetic fields in ways that seemed almost magical to other species, but she would have to hide the true extent of her power. After orientation, students dispersed to find their dormitories and settle in. Zara followed the navigation markers through winding corridors, passing recreational areas where advanced students practiced combat techniques that defied physics. She watched a Xanthari student phase through solid matter, while a Mechlon cadet shaped liquid metal into complex tools with just his thoughts, her dormitory. Room was larger than her entire apartment back on Earth's Luna colony. 3 beds were already claimed, marked by the personal belongings of her roommates. The remaining bed was positioned near a large transparent wall that offered a stunning view of the Nexus Nebula. She set down her single bag and began unpacking her few possessions. "You must be Zara," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see a tall figure covered in what looked like living silver that constantly shifted and flowed across its surface. "I am Liquid Song of Distant Stars, but my friends call me Silver." "I see you're Calarian. I've always admired your species' mental discipline." "Thank you," Zara replied, bowing slightly in the traditional Calarian greeting. "I hope we can learn much from each other." Silver's form rippled with what might have been pleasure. "I believe we will. Our other roommates are Vex, a Corvani tactical specialist, and Moonwhisper, a lunar elf from the Aurora systems. We were just discussing forming a study group for tomorrow's placement examinations." The placement exams. Zara had almost forgotten about those. Tomorrow, the Academy would test each student's abilities to determine their class placements and specialization tracks. She would have to demonstrate enough skill to avoid suspicion while hiding the true depth of her capabilities. "That sounds excellent," she said. "What subjects will we be tested on?" "Combat simulation, energy manipulation, strategic planning, and xenobiology," Silver replied. "Nothing too challenging for students of our caliber, but the Academy likes to establish baseline measurements." As evening approached, Zara lay on her new bed and stared out at the nebula. Earth was somewhere beyond that colorful cosmic cloud, probably worried sick about her mission. She was the first human to successfully infiltrate the Academy, carrying hopes and dreams of an entire species that had been excluded from galactic society for too long. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove that humans deserved their place among the galaxy's heroes. She just had to make sure no one discovered what she really was until the time was right. The placement examination halls buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of new students prepared for their assessments. Zara stood in line with her roommates, watching as testing chambers configured themselves for each species' unique requirements. The Academy's adaptive technology was impressive, reshaping gravity fields, atmospheric composition, and even temporal flow to accommodate the diverse needs of galactic species. "Remember, the key is not to overthink," Vex advised, her Corvani features shifting slightly as she communicated with her hive mind collective. "The Academy wants to see natural responses, not rehearsed performances." Moonwhisper nodded, her ethereal lunar elf features catching the light in mesmerizing patterns. "In my experience, authenticity resonates more strongly than perfection. The instructors have centuries of experience reading student potential." Silver's liquid form rippled with anxiety patterns. "Easy for you to say. Your species are legendary for their natural abilities. Some of us have to work harder to prove our worth." Zara felt a pang of guilt at the ironic truth in Silver's words. She was literally an imposter among them. Yet here was this genuine student worried about not being good enough. "We all earned our place here," she offered quietly. "The Academy chose us for good reasons." Her name was called for the energy manipulation assessment. The testing chamber was a perfect sphere lined with sensors and energy dampeners. Instructor Vrathko, a massive crystalline being from the resonance systems, observed from behind a protective barrier. Calarian energy manipulation typically involves harmonic frequencies and crystalline resonance, Vrathko noted, consulting her tablet. "The test apparatus has been calibrated for your species' capabilities. Please demonstrate your range and control." Zara approached the central platform where several crystals of varying sizes and compositions waited. According to her research, Calarian abilities involved creating sympathetic vibrations in crystal structures to generate energy fields. What she could actually do was far more complex and dangerous. She placed her hands near the first crystal, a simple quartz formation about the size of her fist. Instead of using her natural electromagnetic manipulation, she carefully mimicked the harmonic approach she had studied. The crystal began to glow softly, resonating at frequencies that sent gentle waves of energy through the testing chamber. "Adequate control for a beginning student," Vrathko observed. "Proceed to the next phase." The second test involved multiple crystals arranged in a complex geometric pattern. The challenge was to make them resonate in harmony, creating a stable energy matrix. Zara focused carefully, using just enough of her true abilities to achieve the required result without triggering the chamber's anomaly sensors. The crystals sang in perfect harmony, their combined energies forming a shimmering barrier of light between them. Other students' attempts she had observed earlier created wobbly, incomplete fields or discordant frequencies that quickly collapsed. Her matrix held steady and beautiful. Brathco's crystalline features brightened with interest. Exceptional harmonic control. Your training on Calaria was clearly intensive. Have you studied advanced resonance theory? Some basic principles, Zara replied, fighting to keep her voice level. She had actually learned those principles from stolen Academy databases that Earth's intelligence services had acquired. I find the mathematics fascinating. The combat simulation was next. The chamber reconfigured into a training arena with multiple levels and obstacles. Her opponent was a holographic construct designed to test tactical thinking and physical capabilities. As a Calarian, she was expected to rely on energy shields and ranged attacks rather than physical confrontation. The simulation began with the holographic opponent charging directly at her. Zara raised her hands, generating the energy barrier that Calarians were known for. The construct bounced off harmlessly, giving her time to assess its attack patterns. What the simulation didn't know was that she could have simply overloaded its projection systems with an electromagnetic pulse. Instead, she played the role perfectly. She used tactical retreats, energy blasts calculated to Calarian parameters, and defensive maneuvers that showcased competent but not exceptional abilities. When the simulation ended, she had achieved a solid victory without revealing anything unusual about her capabilities. Well executed, commented Instructor Thane Ray, a veteran Sithrak warrior whose translucent body showed the scars of countless battles. Your defensive instincts are strong, and your energy control under pressure is impressive. We'll place you in advanced tactical courses. The strategic planning assessment involved analyzing a complex scenario involving multiple species with conflicting interests. A trade dispute in the frontier sectors had escalated to the point where military intervention might be necessary. Students were asked to propose solutions that would satisfy all parties while maintaining galactic peace. Zara read through the scenario materials, immediately recognizing patterns that reminded her of historical conflicts on Earth. Humanity had faced similar resource disputes for millennia, developing diplomatic and strategic approaches that other species might not consider. She had to be careful not to propose solutions that would seem too innovative or suspiciously human in their approach. Her final answer focused on economic incentives and cultural exchanges that would address the underlying causes of the conflict rather than just its symptoms. She suggested establishing joint ventures that would benefit all parties and creating cultural ambassador programs to build understanding between the disputed parties. Interesting approach, noted Dr. Kessmore, the Academy's leading strategist. Most students focus on the immediate military aspects of the scenario. Your solution addresses longer-term stability. Where did you learn such comprehensive thinking? Calarian educational systems emphasize systematic analysis, Zara replied, drawing on her cover story. We believe that understanding root causes prevents future conflicts. The final assessment was xenobiology, testing students' knowledge of the diverse species that made up galactic civilization. This was perhaps Zara's strongest area, as Earth scientists had spent decades studying every piece of information they could gather about alien life forms. Her human perspective actually gave her unique insights into the biological and cultural adaptations of other species. When all testing was complete, students gathered in the common areas to compare experiences and await their placement results. Zara found herself surrounded by her roommates and several other students who had heard about her performance. The instructors seemed really impressed with your energy work, Silver observed, his liquid form shifting to mirror Zara's relaxed posture. I've never seen crystals sing that beautifully before. Flux 7's tentacles flickered with admiration patterns. And your strategic scenario solution was brilliant. I focused entirely on military responses and completely missed the economic angles you identified. Moon Whisper smiled, her luminous eyes sparkling with curiosity. You have a unique perspective for a Calarian. Most of your species I've met are more rigid in their thinking patterns. You seem to approach problems from unexpected directions. Zara felt a moment of panic. Was she being too creative, too human in her responses? I spent time studying off-world before coming here, she explained. Exposure to different cultures tends to broaden one's thinking. That makes sense, Vex agreed. though Zara noticed one of the Corvani's collective was studying her with unusual intensity. Cultural exchange is valuable for developing tactical flexibility. That evening, the placement results were announced. Zara found herself assigned to advanced courses in energy manipulation, tactical strategy, and xenocultural studies. Her scores had been high enough to draw positive attention, but not so exceptional as to trigger deeper investigation. As she lay in her bed that night, watching the Nexus Nebula slowly rotate outside her window, Zara reflected on her first real day at the academy. She had successfully passed all examinations while maintaining her cover, but several interactions had made her realize how difficult it would be to maintain her deception long-term. Her roommates were beginning to see her as more than just another Calarian student. The instructors had noticed her unique approaches to problems. Most concerning of all, she was starting to genuinely care about these people as friends and classmates, not just as part of her mission. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as actual classes began. She would need to continue proving herself worthy of the academy, while hiding the fact that humanity's capabilities far exceeded what most galactic species imagined possible. 3 weeks into the semester, Zara had settled into what seemed like a normal routine at the academy. Advanced energy manipulation with Professor Vrathko challenged her to maintain her Calarian facade, while demonstrating increasingly complex techniques. Tactical strategy courses pushed her to think like a galactic citizen rather than a human observer. Xenocultural studies provided fascinating insights into species she had only read about in classified Earth databases, but it was during a routine training exercise that her carefully constructed world began to crack. The exercise took place in Simulation Bay 7, a massive chamber capable of recreating any environment in the galaxy. Today's scenario involved a disaster response on Kepler Station, a mining facility in the asteroid belt of the Vega system. A reactor malfunction had created a cascade failure, trapping civilians and threatening to destroy the entire station. "Teams of 5, announced Commander Dextal, a grizzled Mechlon veteran whose metallic skin bore the scars of countless battles. "You have 47 minutes to evacuate civilians and stabilize the reactor before the station's destruction becomes inevitable. Remember, this is not about heroic gestures. This is about saving lives through coordinated action." Zara found herself grouped with her roommates plus a Zenthari student named Phase, who could move through solid matter at will. Their assignment was Sector C, the residential areas closest to the failing reactor core. The simulation began with alarms blaring and artificial gravity fluctuating as the chamber transformed around them. Smoke filled the corridors while emergency lighting cast everything in threatening red shadows. The attention to detail was incredible, including the acrid smell of burning electronics and the vibrations of structural failure. "Evacuation routes Alpha and Beta are blocked," Vex reported, her collective consciousness allowing her to process multiple data streams simultaneously. "Gamma route shows partial structural collapse. We'll need to create our own path." Silver's liquid form stretched ahead to scout while Phase moved through walls to check adjacent compartments. Moonwhisper used her species' natural empathy to locate civilians by sensing their emotional distress. Zara focused her sensors on the structural integrity of their surroundings, trying to determine which walls could safely be removed. They found their first group of survivors in a locked compartment where the door mechanisms had failed during the initial reactor surge. The standard approach would be to use energy tools to cut through the door, but the process would take valuable time they didn't have. "Can you resonant shatter the locking mechanism?" Silver asked Zara. "Your harmonic control is precise enough to target just the internal components." Zara approached the door, placing her hands on the metal surface. She could feel the electromagnetic fields that powered the locking system, the delicate circuit patterns that had fused during the power surge. A Calarian would indeed use harmonic resonance to gradually work the mechanism free. What Zara could do was simply reroute the electromagnetic patterns, essentially rewiring the system through direct field manipulation, but that was impossible for any known species except humans. She began the slow process of harmonic dissolution instead, carefully vibrating the metal at frequencies that would gradually weaken the fused components. "Hurry!" Phase called from beyond the wall. "I'm detecting massive structural failure 2 levels down. We have maybe 10 minutes before this entire section becomes inaccessible." The harmonic approach wasn't working fast enough. Through her electromagnetic senses, Zara could feel the building stress in the station's support beams. In 8 minutes, this section would collapse, trapping not just the civilians behind the door but her entire team as well. She made a decision that would haunt her for weeks afterward. Pretending to adjust her hand position on the door, Zara sent a precise electromagnetic pulse through the locking mechanism. To her teammates, it would appear that her harmonic resonance had finally achieved the right frequency. The door slid open with a satisfying hiss. "Brilliant work," Silver praised as they rushed inside to find 12 civilians huddled together in terror. But Moonwhisper was looking at her strangely. "That frequency felt wrong," the lunar elf said quietly as they began organizing the evacuation. "Calarian harmonics have a specific resonance signature. Yours was different." Before Zara could respond, Vex's urgent voice cut through their conversation. "Major problem. The evacuation route is completely blocked. Structural collapse has sealed all standard exits." Phase confirmed the situation after a quick scouting run. "No way through the debris. It would take hours to clear, and we don't have hours." "The ventilation shafts," suggested one of the civilians, a young Quellian engineer. "They're reinforced and should still be intact." Silver extended himself to check the nearest shaft entrance. "Too narrow for most species, and there are 3 different branching points where we could get lost. We'd need someone who could navigate by sensing the air currents and electromagnetic fields." All eyes turned to Zara. Among their group, Calarian energy manipulation was the closest thing to electromagnetic field sensing, though even that was a stretch for what they actually needed. "I can try," Zara said, knowing she was about to take another dangerous step away from her cover identity. The ventilation shaft was indeed narrow, barely wide enough for most humanoid species to crawl through, but it was worse than that. About halfway to the exit, a section had partially collapsed, creating a gap that required precise timing and coordination to cross safely. Zara led the group through the darkness, using her electromagnetic senses to map the path ahead while pretending to rely on harmonic echolocation. She could feel every power conduit in the walls, every structural beam, every circuit pathway in the station's infrastructure. The level of detail was overwhelming, and she had to focus carefully to avoid revealing the true extent of her capabilities. When they reached the collapsed section, she realized the problem was more serious than Phase had indicated. The gap wasn't just narrow, it was actively unstable. Each person crossing would stress the weakened structure further, potentially causing a complete collapse that would trap anyone still behind. "One at a time, very carefully," she instructed. "I'll monitor the structural integrity as each person crosses." What she was actually doing was using electromagnetic manipulation to reinforce the weakened support beams, providing just enough additional stability for each person to cross safely. To her teammates, it appeared that she was simply using Calarian energy techniques to scan for danger. Moonwhisper was the last to cross, and as she reached the safe side, she caught Zara's eye in the dim emergency lighting. "Your energy signatures are becoming increasingly difficult to explain," she said quietly. Before Zara could respond, they emerged into the main evacuation center where other teams were gathering survivors. Commander Dextal was coordinating the overall evacuation effort while monitoring the reactor situation through his tactical displays. "Sector C team reporting," Vex announced. 12 civilians evacuated successfully, all in good condition." "Excellent work," Dextal replied, but his expression was grim. "However, we have a new problem. The reactor stabilization teams have failed to contain the cascade failure. We have approximately 6 minutes before the core breaches and destroys the entire station. The implications hit everyone immediately. They could evacuate the civilians, but the station itself represented a massive investment in galactic infrastructure. Its destruction would impact dozens of worlds that depended on the rare minerals it processed. More importantly, there were 3 other teams still trying to reach trapped survivors in the deeper sections. "Isn't there anything we can do?" Silver asked, his form rippling with distress patterns. Commander Dextal shook his head grimly. "The reactor control systems are too damaged for any known repair technique. It would require someone to physically interface with the electromagnetic control systems and essentially rewire them in real time. No species in the galaxy has that capability." Zara felt her stomach drop as she realized the horrible irony of the situation. She could save the station and the trapped teams, but doing so would require abilities that would immediately reveal her true nature as a human. Everything she had worked for, all the careful preparation and months of maintaining her cover, would be destroyed in an instant. But 3 teams of Academy students were going to die if she didn't act. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on her like the gravity of a gas giant. Perhaps, she said carefully, if someone could get close enough to the reactor control center. Absolutely not, Commander Dextal cut her off. The radiation levels would be fatal to most species, and the electromagnetic interference would disable any standard equipment. It's simply impossible. Impossible for everyone except a human with electromagnetic manipulation abilities and significantly higher radiation tolerance than most galactic species. Zara found herself at the most critical decision point of her mission and her life. The countdown timer on Commander Dextal's display showed 4 minutes and 17 seconds when Zara made her choice. I volunteer to attempt the reactor stabilization, she announced, stepping forward before her courage could abandon her. The evacuation center fell silent except for the constant wail of emergency alarms. Commander Dextal's metallic features shifted into an expression of disbelief. Cadet, I just explained that the mission is impossible. The radiation levels alone would kill a Calarian within minutes, and the electromagnetic interference would make it impossible to interface with the control systems. Calarian physiology includes adaptive radiation resistance, Zara replied, drawing on research she'd memorized about her supposed species. And our energy manipulation abilities might allow for more direct interface methods than standard equipment. It was a desperate stretch of known Calarian capabilities, but it was the only explanation she could offer without revealing the truth. Moonwhisper stepped closer, her ethereal features intense with concern. Zara, even if you could survive the radiation exposure, no Calarian has ever demonstrated the level of electromagnetic control you're suggesting. The energy patterns required would be completely beyond normal harmonic resonance. Maybe, Zara admitted, but I have to try. Vex's collective consciousness was processing probabilities at incredible speed. The statistical likelihood of success is less than 12%. The risk-benefit analysis suggests we should focus on evacuating remaining personnel, rather than attempting an impossible repair. Those 3 teams trapped in the lower sections aren't statistics, Zara replied firmly. They're our fellow students. Academy doctrine is clear. We don't abandon people when there's any possibility of saving them, Commander. Dextal studied her with the intensity of someone who had survived decades of impossible situations. Your dedication is admirable, Cadet, but dedication doesn't overcome physics. What you're proposing requires abilities that simply don't exist. Then we create new possibilities, Zara said, unconsciously echoing human military philosophy that she'd grown up hearing from her father, a veteran of Earth's defense forces. Silver's liquid form rippled with confusion. That's a very unusual philosophy for a Calarian. Your species typically approaches problems through systematic analysis, not intuitive leaps. The timer showed 3 minutes and 41 seconds. Zara could feel time slipping away along with the lives of everyone still trapped in the station. She had to make them understand, even if it meant taking enormous risks with her cover. Sometimes systematic analysis isn't enough, she said. Sometimes you have to trust that the impossible is just the improbable waiting for the right person to attempt it. Faze, who had remained silent throughout the debate, suddenly spoke up. I'll go with her. I can navigate through the damaged sections to reach the reactor control center, and my density shifting might provide some protection against the radiation. And I can provide harmonic support to enhance her electromagnetic capabilities, Silver added, his form solidifying into a more humanoid configuration. If we're going to attempt the impossible, we should do it together. Commander Dextal looked around the group, seeing the determination in their faces despite the overwhelming odds. Finally, he nodded grimly. 3 minutes, 15 seconds. If you're going to do this, move now. The route to the reactor control center led through sections of the station that had been evacuated for good reason. Emergency barriers had sealed most passages, forcing them to use maintenance corridors that weren't designed for normal foot traffic. Faze led the way, shifting through obstacles that would have required precious minutes to circumvent normally. As they approached the reactor level, Zara could feel the electromagnetic chaos radiating from the failing containment systems. To her human senses, it was like approaching a symphony of destruction played on instruments of pure energy. Every circuit was screaming in frequencies that no other species could perceive. creating a complex pattern of failure that was actually quite beautiful in its complexity. The radiation levels are getting dangerous, Faze warned. His density-shifted form providing him with some protection. We should be feeling the effects by now. Silver was struggling, his liquid composition more vulnerable to radiation than most species. I can't maintain coherent form much longer in this environment, but Zara felt fine. Human physiology, evolved under the radiation of Earth's yellow sun, was remarkably resilient compared to species that had evolved under the gentler energy of different star types. The radiation that was endangering her friends was merely uncomfortable for her. I can proceed alone from here, she said. You've both done enough to help. Absolutely not, Silver insisted, though his form was beginning to waver. We're a team. Then stay here and maintain communications with the evacuation center, Zara compromised. I need you to monitor the station's overall systems and warn me if anything else starts to fail. The reactor control center was a chaos of sparking conduits and failed systems. The main control interface had been completely destroyed in the initial cascade failure, leaving only the bare electromagnetic control pathways that regulated the reactor's magnetic containment fields. Standard repair would require hours of work with specialized equipment that they didn't have. What Zara could do was interface directly with the electromagnetic systems using her human abilities. She placed her hands on the primary control node, feeling the chaotic energy patterns that were pushing the reactor toward catastrophic failure. Through her communicator, she could hear Silver reporting to the evacuation center. She's made contact with the control systems. Somehow this is impossible. She's interfacing directly with the electromagnetic fields. No equipment, no harmonic resonance, just direct neural interface. Commander Dextal's voice crackled through the static. Explain what you mean by direct interface. I mean she's controlling the reactor's magnetic fields with her thoughts. The energy patterns she's generating are completely outside known Calarian parameters. This shouldn't be possible for any known species. Zara forced herself to focus on the task rather than the growing suspicion in her friends' voices. The reactor's containment fields were collapsing in a cascade pattern that she could see clearly through her electromagnetic senses. She began redirecting the energy flows, essentially rewiring the magnetic containment system through direct manipulation rather than mechanical controls. It was intricate work that required her full concentration. Each adjustment had to be perfectly calculated, because one mistake would accelerate the cascade failure instead of stopping it. She found herself drawing on human intuitive problem-solving approaches that no other species would consider. Containment field stability increasing, Faze reported from his monitoring position. Whatever she's doing, it's working. Field stability at 40% and climbing, Silver added, his voice filled with amazement. She's not just repairing the damage. She's actually improving the reactor's efficiency beyond original specifications. The work was exhausting in ways that had nothing to do with physical fatigue. Holding the complex electromagnetic patterns in her mind while making real-time adjustments pushed her abilities to their absolute limits, but gradually the chaotic energy flows began to settle into stable patterns. Containment field stability at 90%, Faze announced. The cascade failure has been completely stopped. Zara released her interface with the control systems and slumped against the nearest wall, physically and mentally drained. She had saved the station and the trapped teams, but in doing so, she had demonstrated abilities that no Calarian could possibly possess. Outstanding work, Commander Dextal's voice came through the communicator. All trapped teams have been successfully evacuated. Return to the evacuation center for debriefing. During the journey back, neither Faze nor Silver spoke much, but Zara could feel their questions hanging in the air like charged particles before a storm. She had saved lives, but potentially at the cost of her mission and possibly her life. When they reached the evacuation center, Commander Dextal was waiting with several other Academy instructors and the official she didn't recognize. The woman wore the insignia of the Galactic Security Council, and her expression suggested that the easy part of Zara's day was now over. Cadet Thorne, Commander Dextal said formally, your actions today saved numerous lives and prevented a catastrophic infrastructure loss. However, your demonstrated capabilities raise certain questions that require immediate investigation. The Security Council official stepped forward. I am Agent Coronel. Your energy manipulation abilities today exceeded the known parameters of Calarian physiology by several orders of magnitude. You will accompany me for detailed questioning regarding the nature and origin of your unusual capabilities. Moonwhisper, Vex, Silver, and Phase formed a protective semicircle around her, their expressions mixing concern with growing realization that their roommate was not who she claimed to be. Whatever happens, Silver said quietly, we'll face it together. But Zara knew that her time at the academy as Zara Thorne, Calarian student, was now over. The only question was whether she would face what came next as a hero or as a threat to galactic security. The interrogation chamber on level 12 was designed to be intimidating. Bare metal walls reflected cold lighting that seemed to penetrate every shadow, while scanning arrays hummed softly as they analyzed every electromagnetic signature in the room. Agent Coronel sat across from Zara at a table that seemed too small for the weight of the questions being asked. Your genetic scans continue to show Calarian markers, the agent said, consulting her tablet with the expression of someone facing an impossible puzzle. Yet your demonstrated abilities today included direct electromagnetic manipulation on a scale that no Calarian has ever achieved. In fact, they exceed the capabilities of any known species in our databases. Zara sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, mind racing through possible responses. Each word she spoke now could determine not just her own fate, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. Furthermore, Agent Coronel continued, your neural patterns during the reactor repair were recorded by the station's emergency systems. The analysis shows thought processes that don't match any known species' psychological profiles. The door slid open, admitting Commander Dextal and Director Keith Na herself. The massive Vorthax presence filled the room, her 6 arms moving in patterns that suggested deep contemplation. Agent Coronel has briefed me on the situation, Director Kethna said, her voice carrying the authority of centuries. Cadet Thorne, your actions today were heroic by any measure. You saved the lives of 17 Academy students and preserved critical galactic infrastructure. However, the methods you used raise questions about your true identity and capabilities. The genetic scanners could be fooled by sufficiently advanced technology, Agent Coronel added. We need to know who you really are and who sent you here. Zara looked up at them, feeling the weight of her mission and her conscience pulling her in different directions. Through the chamber's observation windows, she could see her roommates waiting in the corridor outside. Silver's liquid form was fluctuating with anxiety patterns, while Moonwhisper's luminous features showed deep concern. Vex was communicating rapidly with her collective, and Phase kept shifting partially out of phase, a nervous habit she'd noticed during difficult exams. They trust me, she said quietly. Who? Director Keithna asked. My roommates, my classmates. They formed a protective circle around me when Agent Coronel arrived. They're willing to stand by me even though they know something isn't right. Zara's voice grew stronger as she continued. That trust means more to me than my mission. Agent Coronel leaned forward. So you admit you're here on a mission. Who sent you? What intelligence service? What is your real species? Zara stood up slowly, her decision crystallizing. My name is Zara Thorne, but I'm not from Calaria. I'm not even from the Calarian system. Where are you from? Director Kethna asked, though her tone suggested she was beginning to suspect the answer. Sol system, 3rd planet. My people call it Earth. The silence in the room was profound. Agent Coronel's tablet slipped from her fingers, clattering on the table. Commander Dextal's metallic features shifted through several expressions before settling on stunned disbelief. Impossible, Agent Coronel whispered. Earth is a quarantined world. The species there was classified as too dangerous for galactic contact. No human has left the Sol system in over 200 years. That's not entirely accurate, Zara replied. No human has left the Sol system legally in over 200 years. But my people have been watching, learning, preparing for the day when we could prove we deserve our place among the galactic community. Director Kethna's 6 arms moved in complex patterns as she processed this revelation. The electromagnetic manipulation abilities you demonstrated today, they're natural human capabilities? Yes, Zara confirmed. Among other things, humans evolved on a world with a dynamic electromagnetic environment and significant radiation exposure. Our physiology developed capabilities that most species would consider extraordinary. This explains the energy patterns we couldn't identify, Commander Dextal said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. Your species can directly manipulate electromagnetic fields through neural interface. It's one of our abilities, Zara acknowledged. We also have enhanced pattern recognition, adaptive stress responses, and intuitive problem-solving capabilities that other species often find unpredictable. Agent Coronel recovered her tablet with shaking hands. The Galactic Council classified humans as a dangerous species, specifically because of these capabilities. The decision was made to maintain quarantine until humanity either evolved beyond their aggressive tendencies or until we proved ourselves worthy, Zara finished. That's why I'm here. Not as a spy or a saboteur, but as proof that humans can be heroes too. The door chimed and Director Kethna gestured for entry. Professor Vrathko entered, her crystalline features bright with excitement. Director, I've been analyzing the reactor repair data. The techniques the cadet used aren't just advanced, they're revolutionary. She didn't just stabilize the containment fields. She actually improved the reactor's efficiency by 37%. These methods could transform energy production throughout the galaxy. Professor, Agent Coronel said carefully, Cadet Thorne has just revealed that she's human. Professor Vrathko stopped mid-sentence, her crystalline body flickering through several different energy states. Human, as in, from Earth? The quarantined world? The same, Director Kethna confirmed. But that's... Professor Vrathko paused, her scientific mind racing through implications. The theoretical papers on human capabilities suggested they might possess significant technological potential, but this level of natural ability exceeds our most optimistic projections, which is exactly why the quarantine was established. Agent Coronel said grimly, a species with these capabilities could destabilize the entire galactic order. Or revolutionize it, Zara interjected. Professor Vrathko just confirmed that my techniques could improve energy production galaxy-wide. Imagine what humanity could contribute if we were allowed to participate instead of being feared and isolated. Through the observation windows, her roommates had moved closer, clearly sensing the gravity of whatever was happening inside. Silver was pressing against the transparent surface, his liquid form flat against the barrier in an attempt to provide moral support. They still trust me, Zara said, pointing toward her friends. Even knowing that everything they believed about me was a lie, they're still here. That has to count for something. Director Kethna turned to observe the students outside. Your classmates are requesting permission to speak on your behalf. They've submitted formal statements attesting to your character and your commitment to Academy values. They barely know the real me, Zara said softly. Perhaps they know the most important parts, Commander Dextal suggested. Character isn't about what species you belong to. It's about the choices you make when faced with difficult situations. Agent Coronel was consulting her tablet again, clearly communicating with higher authorities. The Galactic Security Council is convening an emergency session. This situation requires decisions at the highest levels of government. What happens to me now? Zara asked. That depends, Director Kethna replied. On whether you're here as an individual seeking education and acceptance, or as an advance agent for human expansion into galactic space. I'm here because I believe humanity deserves a chance to prove that we're not the monsters you think we are, Zara said. I'm here because a young girl on Earth looked up at the stars and dreamed of being a hero, just like students from every other world in the galaxy. And yet your very presence here represents a massive breach of galactic security protocols, Agent Coronel pointed out. However noble your intentions, you've violated treaties that have maintained peace for centuries. The weight of that truth settled on Zara's shoulders. She had known this moment would come eventually, but facing it was more difficult than she had imagined. Her mission had been to prove human worth, but she had also potentially triggered a galactic crisis. So what happens now? She asked again. Director Kethna's 6 arms moved in contemplative patterns. Now we discover whether the galaxy is ready to accept that humans might be more than the sum of their capabilities, and whether humanity is ready to accept the responsibilities that come with joining our community. Outside the observation windows, her roommates continued their vigil, waiting for their friend to emerge, regardless of what species she might actually be. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours, with representatives from 47 member species participating via quantum communication links. Director Kethna had transported Zara to the Academy's council chamber, a massive spherical room where holographic displays showed the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Zara sat in the defendant's circle at the center of the chamber, feeling incredibly small under the scrutiny of so many alien eyes. Some faces showed curiosity, others concern, and more than a few displayed expressions she interpreted as fear. Chancellor Vex Prime of the Andromedans called the session to order, her multiple voice harmonics creating an ethereal chorus that filled the chamber. We convene this emergency session to address the confirmed presence of a human operative at the Galactic Academy of Heroes, in direct violation of the Sol System quarantine established 237 years ago. Counselor Thane Kess, representing the Sithrak Alliance, spoke first. The quarantine was established for good reason. Human psychological profiles indicated a species prone to violence, territorial expansion, and unpredictable behavior. Their technological development outpaced their social evolution by dangerous margins. Yet the individual before us used those same allegedly dangerous capabilities to save 17 Academy students, countered Counselor Rainsong of the Aquarian Collective. Her actions demonstrated selflessness and heroic intent, not the aggressive tendencies we were warned about. Agent Coronel stepped forward to present her preliminary report. Our investigation confirms that the human known as Zara Thorne has been operating under a false identity for approximately 4 months. Her genetic disguise required technology beyond current galactic capabilities, suggesting human advancement has continued during their isolation. How many others are there? Demanded General Forge Master of the Iron Republics, his mechanical voice harsh with suspicion. If one human can infiltrate our most secure educational institution, how many others have penetrated our society? Zara stood, requesting permission to speak. Chancellor Vex Prime's harmonics shifted to an acknowledgement tone. You may address the Council. I am the only human currently outside the Sol system, Zara said clearly. This was a mission undertaken by a small group of Earth scientists and military officers who believed humanity deserved a chance to prove our worth. We are not an invasion force or an advanced scouting party. We are a people who have spent over 2 centuries in isolation, watching the galaxy move forward without us. And yet your very presence here proves that humanity has ignored galactic law, pointed out Counselor Deep Current of the Leviathan Worlds. How can we trust a species that violates treaties as their first act of contact? Because desperation sometimes drives good people to make difficult choices, Zara replied. My people have watched galactic civilization advance through technologies and philosophies that we developed independently centuries ago. We've seen wars that we might have helped prevent, disasters we could have mitigated, discoveries we could have contributed to. We were judged by our worst potential, rather than given a chance to demonstrate our best intentions. Director Keth Na activated a holographic display showing Academy records. The Council should note that Cadet Thorne's performance evaluations consistently demonstrate Academy values of service, protection, and cooperation. Her instructors and classmates universally praise her character and dedication. Her classmates don't know what she really is, General Forge Master retorted. Actually, they do now, Commander Dextile interjected, entering the chamber with 4 familiar figures, and they have requested permission to speak on her behalf. Silver, Moonwhisper, Vex, and Phase entered the council chamber with expressions of determination mixed with awe at their surroundings. They took positions near Zara's circle, forming the same protective semicircle they had maintained since her arrest. Chancellor Vex Prime's harmonics expressed surprise. This is highly irregular. Academy students do not typically address the Galactic Council. With respect, Chancellor, Silver said, his liquid form solidifying into its most formal configuration. Friendship transcends protocol. We know our roommate is human. We've known something was different about her for weeks. But we also know her character, her values, and her commitment to protecting others. The energy patterns we observed during the reactor repair were unlike anything in our databases, Moonwhisper added, her ethereal voice carrying surprising authority. But they were also beautiful, elegant, and precisely controlled. There was no aggression or violence in her methods, only the desire to save lives. Phase shifted partially out of phase, a nervous habit that somehow made his words more impactful. She could have let us die in that simulation. Revealing her abilities put her mission at risk, but she chose to save us anyway. That tells us everything we need to know about human nature. Vex's collective consciousness allowed her to process the Council's reactions in real time. My collective has analyzed probability matrices regarding human integration into galactic society. The potential benefits significantly outweigh the projected risks, particularly given the demonstrated human capacity for sacrifice and cooperation. Counselor Thane Kess was unmoved. Touching testimonials aside, the fact remains that humans have violated our laws and demonstrated the ability to circumvent our security measures. They pose a clear and present danger to galactic stability. Do they? Professor Vrathko entered the chamber, carrying data tablets and projection devices. Because I've spent the last 6 hours analyzing the reactor repair techniques that Cadet Thorne used. And the implications are staggering. The professor activated a holographic display showing energy flow patterns. These electromagnetic manipulation methods could revolutionize power generation, space propulsion, and even medical treatment across the galaxy. But more importantly, they represent a completely non-violent application of abilities that we feared might be used for destruction. One individual's actions cannot represent an entire species. General Forgemaster insisted. Perhaps not, Director Kethna acknowledged, but they can represent what a species might become when given proper guidance and opportunity. The Academy exists to train heroes, not to judge species by their origins. Chancellor Vex Prime's harmonics shifted to contemplative frequencies. The question before us is whether humanity represents a threat to be contained, or a resource to be embraced. Cadet Thorne's presence here forces us to make that decision now rather than continuing to defer it indefinitely. Agent Coronel stepped forward again. I must point out that if we accept this human into the Academy, we establish a precedent for ending the Sol system quarantine. This could lead to demands for full human integration into galactic society. And would that be so terrible? Rainsong asked. We've seen what one human can accomplish when motivated by Academy values. Imagine what humanity could contribute to galactic civilization if they were partners rather than prisoners. The debate continued for hours, with representatives arguing passionately on both sides. Zara listened to her fate being decided by beings she had studied but never met, discussing the future of a species based on her actions alone. Finally, Chancellor Vex Prime called for preliminary voting on 3 key questions. Was Zara Thorne a threat to galactic security? Should she be allowed to continue her studies at the Academy? And should the Council consider reviewing the Sol system quarantine status? The votes were closer than anyone had expected. Zara was declared not to be an immediate security threat by a margin of 26 to 21. Permission to continue Academy studies passed by a single vote, 24 to 23. The motion to review the quarantine status tied at 23 to 24, requiring further discussion. The Council will recess for individual species consultation, Chancellor Vex Prime announced. We will reconvene in 72 hours to address the quarantine review, question and finalize our decisions regarding both Cadet Thorne and humanity's future, relationship with the galactic community. As the holographic representatives faded from view, Zara slumped with exhaustion. She had survived the initial confrontation, but the most important question remained unanswered. That went better than expected, Silver said, flowing closer to offer support, but not as well as hoped, Moonwhisper added softly. The fear runs deep among some species. Director Kethna approached their group. You have 72 hours to prepare for what may be the most important presentation of your life, Cadet Thorne. The Council will want to hear not just from you, but potentially from Earth itself. I suggest you prepare to answer some very difficult questions about your species' intentions and capabilities. As they left the Council chamber, Zara realized that her mission had evolved far beyond proving individual human worth. She was now tasked with representing the hopes and dreams of her entire species to a galaxy that had spent centuries learning to fear them. The next 72 hours would determine whether humanity would finally be allowed to reach for the stars or remain forever trapped within their own solar system. The 72 hours passed in a blur of preparation, consultation, and increasingly complex negotiations. Zara found herself at the center of discussions that would reshape galactic politics, but what struck her most was the unwavering support of her Academy friends. They had not only accepted her true identity, but had become her strongest advocates among their respective species. Silver had convinced several liqueform collectives to formally endorse human integration. Moon Whisper's testimony about Zara's character had swayed 3 lunar elf councils to reconsider their positions. Phase's detailed analysis of her reactor repair techniques had impressed the Zenthari technical guilds, and Vex's collective had run comprehensive probability analyses that projected significant benefits from human inclusion in galactic society. When the council reconvened, the chamber felt different. More representatives were present, including several species leaders who rarely participated in standard sessions. The weight of history pressed down on everyone present. Chancellor Vex Prime's opening harmonics carried unusual intensity. We reconvened to address 3 interconnected questions: the future of Cadet Zara Thorne, the status of human integration into academy programs, and the potential modification of Sol system quarantine protocols. Before we proceed with formal discussions, Director Kethna announced, "We have received a transmission from Earth that the Council should consider." A new holographic display activated, showing a figure that made Zara's heart skip several beats. Admiral Sarah Chen, Director of Earth's Stellar Defense Council, appeared in the chamber with the blue marble of Earth visible behind her. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Admiral Chen began, "I speak for the unified governments of Earth regarding our daughter Zara Thorne. 3 months ago, we made the difficult decision to send her beyond our solar system, not as a violation of your laws, but as a desperate attempt to prove our worth as potential members of the galactic community." Admiral Chen's image turned to focus directly on Zara. "Zara, your mother and I are incredibly proud of what you've accomplished. You've shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our unusual abilities. It's our capacity to care about others, even those we've never met." The transmission continued with Admiral Chen addressing the Council directly. "We understand your concerns about human capabilities. We've spent centuries learning to control and channel those abilities constructively. What Zara demonstrated at the Academy represents the best of what humanity can offer. Not power for its own sake, but power used in service of others. We do not seek to challenge existing galactic structures or threaten any species. We seek partnership, cooperation, and the chance to contribute to the greater good of all galactic citizens. If the Council will accept us, Earth is prepared to begin formal integration processes under whatever terms and safeguards you deem appropriate." The transmission ended with Admiral Chen's final words. "Zara carries our hopes, but more importantly, she carries our values. Judge humanity not by your fears of what we might do, but by what she has already done." The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed this unprecedented direct communication from Earth. Chancellor Vex Prime's harmonics showed deep contemplation before she spoke. "The Council recognizes the significance of this communication. We will now hear final statements before proceeding to formal voting." Councillor Thane Kess spoke first, his Sithrak features harder than usual. "Earth's words are carefully chosen and diplomatically correct. But words are not actions. How can we trust a species that begins our relationship with deception and law-breaking? Because sometimes the most important truths can only be revealed through action rather than words," Zara replied, standing to address the Council one final time. "My people didn't send me here to deceive you. They sent me here to show you who we really are when given the chance to be our best selves." "And what did you show us?" asked Councillor Rainsong. "That humans will risk everything to save others even when those others are not our own species. That we can learn, adapt, and grow when given proper guidance and opportunity. That our capabilities, however unusual they might seem, are tools we use to protect and create rather than to dominate and destroy." Professor Vrathko activated her displays again. "The Council should also consider the practical benefits of human integration. The technological innovations we've observed could advance galactic civilization by centuries. The electromagnetic manipulation techniques alone could solve energy crises affecting dozens of worlds. But at what cost?" General Forgemaster demanded. "Opening our society to a species with such powerful capabilities creates unprecedented risks." Moon Whisper stepped forward, her ethereal voice carrying surprising authority. "All advancement involves risk, General, but isolation involves the risk of stagnation. Zara has shown us that humans share our fundamental values while bringing unique perspectives that could benefit everyone." "The question," Director Kethna said, is whether we choose to face the future with courage or remain paralyzed by fear of change. Chancellor Vex Prime announced the voting procedures. 3 separate votes would be taken: immediate expulsion versus continued academy enrollment for Zara, emergency restrictions versus gradual integration protocols for human contact, and maintenance versus modification of Sol system quarantine status. The votes were conducted in the traditional Galactic Council manner, with each species representative declaring their position openly. Zara watched her fate and humanity's future being decided by beings from across the galaxy, many of whom had never heard of Earth until 3 days ago. The first vote was closer than anyone expected. 25 species voted to allow Zara to continue her academy studies, while 22 voted for immediate expulsion. Her academy friends cheered quietly, but everyone knew the harder votes were still to come. The second vote addressed broader human integration. After intense deliberation, 24 species supported gradual integration protocols while 23 preferred emergency restrictions. The single vote margin reflected deep galactic divisions about humanity's place in their society. The final vote would determine whether the Sol system quarantine would remain in place indefinitely. This decision would affect not just Zara, but the 4 billion humans waiting on Earth and throughout the solar system. Chancellor Vex Prime called for the final vote with ceremonial gravity. The question before the Council is whether to maintain the current Sol system quarantine indefinitely, or to begin formal modification procedures that would allow gradual human integration into galactic society. One by one, species representatives declared their positions. Zara's heart rose and fell with each vote, watching humanity's future balance on a knife's edge. When the counting finished, the chamber fell completely silent. 24 votes for maintaining the quarantine, 24 votes for beginning modification procedures, 1 abstention. The vote is tied, Chancellor Vex Prime announced. In such cases, Galactic Council protocols require a revote after additional deliberation. Unless... She paused, her harmonics shifting to frequencies Zara had never heard before. Unless the party most directly affected chooses to address the Council one final time before the decisive vote. All eyes turned to Zara. This was her last chance to speak for her entire species, to find words that might tip the balance toward humanity's dream of joining the galactic community. She stood slowly, looking around at the representatives of 47 different species, thinking about her roommates who had become true friends, about the academy instructors who had seen potential in her, and about the 4 billion humans waiting for news from the stars. 3 months ago, I was just a student with impossible dreams, she began. Today I stand before you not as a representative of human ambition, but as proof of human possibility. We are a young species with much to learn, but we're also a hopeful species with much to give. If you grant us this chance, we won't disappoint you. We'll earn our place through service, contribution, and dedication to the values that make galactic civilization worthy of admiration. We ask not for special treatment, but for the opportunity that every species deserves, the chance to prove ourselves through our actions rather than be judged by your fears. Humanity is ready to reach for the stars, not to conquer them, but to help guard them. Give us that chance and we'll show you that the galaxy is stronger when all of its children are free to contribute their gifts. The revote was swift and decisive. 25 species supported beginning quarantine modification procedures. 22 maintained their opposition. Humanity would be allowed to begin the long journey toward full galactic citizenship. As celebrations erupted among her supporters, Zara felt tears streaming down her face. She had done it. Not just for herself, but for every human who had ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what might be possible among the stars. 6 months later, as she walked across the Academy's graduation stage to receive her Hero's Commission, Zara thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. Her roommates sat in the audience, now her lifelong friends and the first ambassadors between humanity and their respective species. Professor Vrathko was developing new technologies based on human electromagnetic techniques. And somewhere in the Sol system, the first official diplomatic ships were preparing for humanity's formal introduction to galactic society. The girl who had dreamed of being a hero had become something more. She had become the bridge between worlds, proving that sometimes the greatest heroism comes not from hiding who you are, but from finding the courage to show the universe exactly who you can become. As director Kethna placed the hero's commission around her neck, Zara smiled at the knowledge that this wasn't an ending but a beginning. Humanity had finally earned its place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same again.